Hello, fellow Port Charles obsessives. Today is a fantastic day to be completely and utterly consumed by our favorite daytime drama. Grab your coffee and let's get right into the thick of it because the writers are giving us an absolute masterclass this week and I simply cannot keep my thoughts to myself any longer. I am absolutely losing my mind over the scene in the GH chapel between Britt Westbourne and Rocco Falconeri. The way I see it, this single interaction completely redefines their entire dynamic and raises the stakes for the entire canvas. The way the muted, colorful light from the stained glass hit Britt's face when Rocco finally broke down and came clean about being Ross Cullum's shooter was nothing short of cinematic. I feel like this is the best they've written Britt in months because it strips away all of her usual sarcastic armor. When Britt leaned in, her voice shaking with raw, unfiltered terror and warned, "If Cullum finds out you shot him, we're dead." I literally got chills. I think the actress's choice to let her voice crack on the word dead was brilliant. It wasn't a threat, it was a devastating realization of their reality. I know a lot of people in the fandom are saying this storyline is dragging or complaining that Rocco is making foolish, impulsive choices by visiting Cullum's room. But I actually think the slow burn and Rocco's erratic behavior is exactly what's needed. I genuinely think we're missing the point if we expect a teenager to act like a seasoned mobster or a trained WSB agent. I feel so deeply empathetic toward Rocco in that chapel scene. The sheer panic that washed over his face when he realized that Britt, the usually unflappable, scheming Britt Westbourne, was just as terrified as he was a phenomenal piece of acting. In my opinion, Rocco thought he was being a hero, or at least thought he could manage the secret, but seeing Britt's idiot fear finally made the gravity of his actions crash down on him. I believe this is exactly how a kid his age would react to, realizing he has doomed Jason Morgan to WSB custody and put a massive target on his own back. And speaking of raw, devastating emotion, I need to talk about Jordan Ashford's hospital room scenes, because I am completely blown away by the depth of this writing. I feel like the writers are giving us a profound look into Jordan's psyche right now. When Jordan lashed out at Portia Robinson over her pity, I felt every ounce of Jordan's frustration. I think the writers are doing something incredibly smart here by acknowledging the complex history between these two women. Jordan doesn't want Portia's pity, she wants her dignity. But what I loved even more was the immediate aftermath, when Jordan cooled down and actually sought a favor from Portia. I interpret this as Jordan desperately trying to cling to some semblance of control over her life and her environment. She is physically broken, but she refuses to be emotionally patronized. I feel so incredibly moved by the quiet, devastating scene where Jordan reconvenes with Curtis Ashford. When Jordan finally allowed her walls to crumble, weeping over her face and the potential for permanent scars, it broke my heart into a million pieces. I think this is the most vulnerable we have ever seen Jordan. She is usually the pillar of strength, the stoic undercover operative, the former police commissioner who takes a bullet without flinching. But here, she is just a woman terrified of losing her identity and her physical self. The way Curtis looked at her, the pure, unwavering devotion in his eyes was beautiful. I feel like Curtis ripping into Isaiah Gannon earlier was the perfect prelude to this quiet moment. Curtis is feeling entirely helpless. He couldn't stop the crash, he can't magically heal Jordan's face. So he channels all of that terrified protective energy into yelling at Isaiah. In my opinion, Curtis's anger is just his fear wearing a mask. And the way he dropped that mask the second he was alone with Jordan proves how deeply these two are soulmates. I also want to touch on Isaiah's comment to Portia in the preview video, warning her about how long the peace with Jordan will last. I think Isaiah is absolutely right here, and here is why his dialogue backed up. My take, Isaiah sees the situation clinically. He knows the psychological toll of severe physical trauma, and he knows Jordan is a ticking time bomb of grief and anger. I feel like the tension between Isaiah and Curtis is going to explode into something massive, and I am entirely here for it. It grounds the high-stakes mob drama in very real, very human medical and emotional trauma. Shifting gears to the police station, I am endlessly fascinated by the cat and mouse game happening right under Dante Falconeri's nose. The scene where Cassius Faison, who is still flawlessly, terrifyingly posing as Nathan West delivers the latest news regarding the car crash to Dante, is a masterstroke of dramatic irony. I feel a knot in my stomach every time Cassius is on screen with Dante. When Cassius mentioned the scraped guardrail and the evidence pointing to the other driver who didn't stop, I could practically see the wheels turning in Dante's head. I think the writer's choice to have the villain actively assisting the lead detective in a hit-and-run investigation is brilliant because it makes me feel this constant, suffocating suspense. Cassius is controlling the flow of information, and Dante is completely oblivious to the snake in his precinct. This, of course, ties directly into the Quartermaine mansion drama, which is currently my favorite messy subplot. Tracy Quartermaine assuring Brooklyn that she is going to cover up the crash is classic vintage Tracy, and I am obsessed with it. I feel like this is the best they've written. The Quartermaine family dynamic in years because it forces them to close ranks over something incredibly dark. Brooklyn is usually so loud, so combative, and so sure of herself. But seeing her shrink under the weight of her guilt, terrified that she's going to lose Harrison Chase and her chance to foster baby Phoebe, is incredible character work. I believe the impending snags in Tracy's cover-up plan are going to be the catalyst for the best sweeps drama we've had in a long time. I know some fans are upset that Brooklyn is being made the fall guy for a DUI hit and run, but I actually think this is the exact kind of high-stakes mistake that forces a character to grow. The way I interpret it, Brooklyn has always had a safety net. Now she has committed a crime that injured the former police commissioner, and the walls are closing in. I feel like watching her navigate this guilt is going to be the performance of a lifetime for the actress. Let's move over to Bobby's, because the scene between Josslyn Jackson and Lulu Spencer is another perfect example of the writers weaving these disparate storylines together. I think the irony in this scene is almost too delicious to handle. Lulu is sitting there, warning Josslyn that Britt Westbourne is nothing but trouble and telling her to keep her distance from the dangerous drama. Meanwhile, Lulu is literally dating Cassius Faison, the man who is manipulating Jen Sidwell, framing Lucas Jones. And holding the entire town hostage with his secrets, I feel like screaming at my television every time Lulu talks about safety. But what I really loved about this scene was Josslyn's reaction. Josslyn actively choosing to cover up her WSB connection and remaining tangled up in Britt's mess is such a perfect character flaw. I think Josslyn is absolutely arrogant here, and I mean that as a compliment to the writing. She thinks she is smarter than Cullum, smarter than the WSB, and smarter than the mob. I believe her hubris is going to lead her right into Cullum's trap. And the way she smoothly lied to Lulu at Bobby's proves that she is in way over her head. I feel so incredibly anxious for Josslyn because Cullum is ruthless. And her digging is going to get her killed if she doesn't wake up. Finally, I want to talk about the absolute breath of fresh air that is Giovanni Palmieri and Emma Scorpio Drake. Amidst all the car crashes, the WSB interrogations, the mob threats, and the hospital meltdowns, we get this beautiful, pure moment of young romance. When Gio unveiled his huge surprise for Emma, a romantic getaway to explore New York City and see Broadway's Aladdin, I couldn't help but smile at my screen. I loved the way Emma's face lit up. When she playfully insisted that Gio had been holding out on her, but quickly added that she didn't mind, the chemistry was absolutely palpable. I feel like this is the perfect narrative counterbalance to the heavy, suffocating drama of the adult storylines. I know some viewers might think a Broadway trip is a fluffy distraction, but I actually think it is vital to the pacing of the show. I genuinely think we're missing the point if we don't see the value and joy on a soap opera. Emma has been so stressed and saddened by her grandmother Anna Devane's condition. She needed this win. Gio, who has been so vulnerable about his music and his past stepping up to sweep her off her feet, shows incredible character growth. I think the writer's choice to have them leave Port Charles for this trip is brilliant because it isolates them in a bubble of happiness before whatever inevitable tragedy strikes next. I feel like their scenes are a warm hug in the middle of a hurricane, and I am so deeply invested in seeing them happy together in New York. Looking at the canvas as a whole right now, I am just in awe of how interconnected everything feels. The way I see it, you have Rocco's secret tying into Britt's survival, which ties into Jason's freedom, which ties into Sunny and Ethan's alliance against Sidwell. Then you have the car crash tying Jordan and Curtis's trauma to Cassius's police manipulation, which directly threatens Brooklyn's marriage and Tracy's legacy. And floating through all of this is Josslyn poking the bear that is Ross Cullum. I believe the writers have meticulously set up a domino effect, and the chapel scene between Britt and Rocco was the first major domino falling. I feel so incredibly rewarded as a longtime viewer when the show respects its own history like this. The way Ethan Lovett's return is rippling through the canvas, the way Luke Spencer's memory is invoked by Tracy, the way Britt is echoing her own past mistakes by trying to manage a crisis she can't control, it all feels so rich and intentional. I think the decision to have Rocco be the one who shot Cullum was a stroke of genius. It forces everyone into impossible moral corners. Britt has to choose between her own life via Cullum's medication control and protecting Dante's son. Jason is already sacrificing his freedom for the boy. I feel like this is the essence of what makes daytime television so compelling. Good people forced to make terrible choices out of love and fear. When I watch Britt trembling in that chapel, or Jordan weeping over her scars, or Brooklyn suffocating under her guilt, I am reminded of why I tune in every single day. The stakes have never felt higher. The emotions have never felt more grounded. And the performances are truly top tier. I cannot wait to see how Britt handles the ticking time bomb of Rocco's panic, how Curtis navigates Isaiah's dire warnings, and how Dante eventually uncovers the massive web of lies spun by the people closest to him. The way I interpret it, Port Charles is sitting on a powder keg and the match has officially been lit. Bring on the drama because I am loving every single second of it.